I would suggest a few tweaks to the agenda that, we have a couple iterations of minutes to review, and we have some guests from the outside, so I thought we could start with the presentations and then do the minutes last, so that we make we don't make everyone suffer through that.
Why not?
Jeez, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Having been here last time, thank you.
More dynamic than that.
Why don't we start with, we'll start at Bruce's suggestion with Mr. Gorman for the Recreation and Youth Services. So, welcome. It's nice to see you. I don't know if we should do a quick introduction because we haven't had you here before, but I'm Bill Callahan, the chair.
Don Elliott, vice chair.
Chris.
Jen Goldman, newbie.
Nice to meet you.
Thomas Ringer.
Karen Blake.
Liz Guerin.
Jim Sherr.
Great. Thanks for having me. Rick Gorman, obviously the Director of Youth and Recreation Services. My 28 years here, I've sometimes been before you and a number of times haven't been before you. So happy to be here tonight to answer any questions you have on my budget.
Maybe it's okay if Rick can give a
I was gonna
general
say,
overview that might lead to questions. And
Absolutely.
Sure. The department has been a town department since 1988. We started out as a pilot program and then became a department within a year. Basically working at the old Red Barn, if people are familiar, that long ago. Running a number of different programs, dealing mostly with at-risk kids in my first couple of years. And obviously over the last 28 years, we deal with all kids and all different issues in recreational and youth or whatever. For about 5 years, we were putting programs in without a home, basically using the school department, public works building, whatever, have 18 different facilities actually. And then in '93, the town got a committee together to basically say it'd be nice if we could build a home for all the youth services and actually build a youth center. So in '93, we raised our first dollar, and in 2000, we opened up, at that point it was a state-of-the-art $2.5 million building, of which the town actually had given $975,000 to, and we were charged to raise the other 1.5, and then I had to actually outfit the building. We raised another $300,000. So in 2000, we actually had a home, and then for the past 15 years, the youth center has existed at 33 Johnson Street, and we basically deal with middle school through high school. Summertime, we deal with 5-year-olds all the way up, and with an attachment thing, we still deal with a lot of college kids that are actually still involved with us to some capacity, whether it be seasonal job or whatever support services we can provide with that. So we do a variety of different disciplines, recreation being one of it, social programs / leadership. We have an amazing support services component where we do a lot of counseling, working with the school system. Obviously, big issue right now is the big opiate issue we're having in town here. We're doing a lot with. We have a community service program with the court system, and then we do a lot of just the social fun thing, dances for middle school kids and field trips, etc. So that's kind of what we are. 1 director, 4 full-time program coordinators is the makeup of our staff. During the school year, 8 to 15 college and high school kids who work part-time for us. And then during the 9-week summertime, we hire 110 college and high school kids to Stevens Pond, children's shows, all the summer programs, which some of your kids may have been into. So it's a big undertaking we've gone here. We're one of the few communities that have a youth center as a municipal youth center. When we opened up, Andover came over and told us that they were going to build it bigger and faster, and they just are opening up their building 15 years later, and it's a little bit smaller. So a little bit of
a little North and South Parish jealousy there.
So we continue to do a great job, and we're working very closely with Andrew and Jen Price, our superintendent, to be kind of even more innovative. We're an all-inclusive building now. We've got a lot of kids. We call it of abilities. Some people would say of different disabilities, but it's a place where every kid can go, and we're pretty proud of how it's gone. And we've done it on a fairly shoestring budget. I don't think there's, if you'll notice, there's not a lot of fluff in it. It's been really good that Joseph N. Herman Youth Center, Inc. has stayed in business to help offset costs that maybe the town wouldn't pay. And those would be more like fluff things like, giving us new equipment that would take us maybe longer to get for the town. The town has obviously supported any kind of, facility type issues we gotta do. If we need a new roof, the town's gonna be doing that. But to have, the Joseph N. Herman Inc. there to actually kind of help support our stuff has been great. So it's been a great partnership all around.
Since some of you have a puzzled look on your face, the Joseph N. Herman Inc. should be considered as a friends group.
Friends Group, correct.
So it's a private organization that holds several fundraisers during the year. They'll do the Taste of North Andover, they do the carnival, and they do something else. What do they do?
They do
Odds and ends.
annual fund.
So what they do is they basically make typically 2 large donations to the town each year. One of them funds a certain number of scholarships for kids to be members of the youth center, and then they take care of, like, in the recent past, they've re-outfitted the fitness, the gym at the youth center. They've set up the computer room at the youth center, so they're a friends group. They're a private corporation, but they act as a friends group.
It was established in '93 to raise money for the town, and then when they turned it over to town, some people thought it was just gonna close up shop. What they've done for the last 15 years is continue to stay business for strictly one reason: raise funds to offset costs of the town campaign.
Is that a 501c3?
Yes, it is.
charitable?
Yeah,
Okay,
yes,
So
it
when
is.
you make a donation,
Yes, tax deductible.
Yes.
it's tax deductible.
Correct.
And you get a letter
That's
back.
really good.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
They have their own tax ID number. They're
Highly recommend.
affiliated, but not affiliated with the town, if you know.
Yes.
Yes.
Then it has its own board of directors.
Correct.
Yes, it does.
Does, is there another board of directors that's involved?
So there is one appointed by the town manager. So
There
that's
is
the
one.
North
Okay, that
Andover
was my question.
Youth and Recreation Services Board of Directors.
Yep.
And they meet, and they basically work with me to oversee the operation of the building, where the other one is more just a fundraising committee.
No, good, wonderful.
My kids love it.
Thank you.
Oh, my God.
Thank you.
Yeah, my kids love it.
You agree?
Rick, one thing that stood out to me was the teen job fair. And
Yes.
What I liked about it was it's sort of expanding the scope of what it means to be in recreation.
Sure.
It has that tie-in, I think, to what's happening in schools. More and more kids are interested in business and jobs. It's in a way that's very approachable. And I'm really excited to see this sort of program. And I hope you can do more of this sort of thing, because the response is
It was
amazing.
great. So a couple of things to answer your question a little bit too, Chris, is that it actually brought in a whole different group of kids
Yep.
that hadn't been actually involved with us. We did a lot of pre-work where we actually taught kids how to do an interview, how to come to an interview. I think I was most impressed with how many kids came to the job fair in shirts and ties. So there was a whole presentation thing. And the fact that how many kids got jobs out of the job fair. And that was the first year we did it. Small scale, we have bigger plans. The one coming up, we have more businesses that got involved. And, a lot of it was, Terry Holland wanted to hire 10 kids for Stachi's Pizza. I know that's not a glamorous part-time job, but he got 10 people out of there. And a couple other, organizations got, 1 or 2 things. And it was really good for us to start it. I'm more impressed that it actually brought in a group of kids that may not have been a regulars at the youth center, so thanks for saying that, Bill.
You get also paid for the services directly from the families for the kids that show up as well?
So there's a membership fee, it's $100 a year, and no child is ever turned away for a scholarship. So in Ray's point, at our annual fund and the auction item, it's pretty good. We basically, one of the last auction items, you have an option to adopt somebody. So last year we had 97 kids on scholarship, and at the auction they had 110 people adopt a kid. So our biggest things is some of the kids who can't afford to come to the youth center are the kids that need it the most. And there's a humbling where they don't want to let, so we work closely with both school departments and the elementary school guidance counselors to identify those kids and make it a non-stressful thing. Like, they don't have to explain what, there is a little documentation the father has to do, whatever. So, but the membership fee, could raise up to $50,000, which helps us obviously with our operating costs or whatever. But again, my biggest thing is no kid will ever be turned away from that.
What is- so, It sounds wonderful. I want to go over and play. Yeah, what is the
That's a hockey rink.
Not to disparage anyone, but there is a senior walking program in the morning
Oh, awesome.
in the gym itself.
So when you
No, I didn't disparage anyone.
Thank you so much.
I noticed I prefaced that. I didn't want to.
Well, you're collaborating nicely. What is the middle school redevelopment project?
So that is part of, one of the other hats that I wear is I'm also the fields administrator. So that's everything from allotting the fields with the youth groups that use it, baseball, soccer, whatever. But we actually put in, Mark Reese put this in place actually in the year 2003 when we had competing baseball organizations, and it became a very ugly affair. So it was all about having fair allocations. And then once we got everybody back on the same page in one baseball group, all the groups came together and we do it to allot fields or whatever, but the whole plan was to have some long-range plans for fields. And we're pretty excited. If you haven't seen the McAvoy redevelopment on Sutton Street is complete and will be open this year. The Dale Street soccer field, which is across from Gallagher Field, has been completed and already being used. We've done a lot of different work with sharpeners or whatever, but the caveat, the big project is going to be the middle school project. And our goal is, and Bruce's department's working very closely with on this, as well as the superintendent and the town manager is, we're looking to how to better use that site. It's a beautiful, large site. Quite frankly, it's got a stadium that's not used. It was the high school stadium, but obviously we have the high school stadium now. And our goal is to create walking paths, ultimate, larger recreation areas that can fit all of our needs, and really be something as you come down 125, you're gonna sit there and say, this is a great thing North Andover has. It'll have everything included on it. So it's also not gonna happen tomorrow. We're in the very preliminary stages, right, Bruce? But Bruce and I look at it as probably one of our last projects that we do. It's gonna probably be about a 5 to 7 year project to actually take place, and Andrew is supporting. Right now, we got some, when you talk, I think he'll be able to update you a little bit where we are with the whole process, but that's what that project is. So that comes out of the Fields Committee stuff that we do.
And then I noticed that last year, looks like you were a little under budget on repairs. And then this year you have a lower allotted amount, which, makes sense. But in general, like in repairs and maintenance, could you talk a little bit about that line item and why?
I'll take that question since I anticipated it. For many years, Youth and Recreation Services works primarily on a revolving fund account.
Right.
So the money that's raised through fees, through summer registrations, through the program registrations, et cetera, go into a revolving fund. And as you are aware, that revolving fund really can't gain a lot of traction and really show a profit.
Right.
So for a number of years, the department didn't have an operational budget other than some staff. Some of the staff and all of their expense items were taken out of the revolving fund. Probably about 7 years ago.
We started to
We started to increase his operating budget little at a time. Through the success of the department, the revolving fund has grown now a little too large. So we have cut back the operating budget expenses because those will now come out of the revolving fund. So his budget really, on paper, his budget seems to be cut by $18,000, but he has a $200 and something thousand revolving fund that needs to be whittled down a little bit.
Right.
Because again, we get audited every year. We definitely don't want to send up any flags for DOR or anything else that we're making money. Because a revolving fund really is what you bring in, you should be spending. So that's.
And I'm glad he kind of explained it this way, because one thing I do want to let you know, our maintenance costs are up. As the building is now 15 years old, and every year it gets older, we have more issues going on with repairs and maintenance. So that continuing to go up, but we do have the ability with our revolving account, and this was something that was not sprung on me. Andrew and Ray and Lynn, actually, we sat down and this has happened before,
Right.
and I think it's a tribute that we do a pretty good job of raising funds. and how best to use those funds. So I don't look at it that Andrew's really deducting 18,000. I'm gonna still be paying that maintenance through the revolving account.
And I'm gonna make a slight correction, we're not raising funds, what it is, it's fees for programs.
Right.
So,
I was
so,
gonna say,
so the raising funds
is separate.
is separate, right, that's why I wanted to make sure that raising funds is the corporation and they make specific donations. The revolving fund is the membership fees, the program fees for winter programs, summer programs, et cetera, field trips, that kind of stuff, it pays for the part-time staff. It's a quick, sort of like an exchange, so that revolving fund has grown and the expenses haven't matched it. So that's why his expense line items, and we'll probably see a trend over the next couple of years that will go the same way we were about maybe 8-10 years ago. And then as we eat away a little bit at the bottom line of the revolving fund, then little by little his expense line item, his expense lines will start reappearing in the operating budget.
Should he, I suppose you've talked about it.
Yes.
About his you're becoming an enterprise fund, like
No,
Stewart?
no, that's
No.
different. An enterprise fund is different than a revolving fund.
Oh, okay, but is there any transition from one to
No.
another?
No.
You can't make
So-
Yeah, I was
a,
gonna
A
say, what
good
about
example
setting
of
aside some
revolving
money
fund
for-
would be like the school lunch programs.
Yes.
So in other words, like, it's money collected and spent, and it's controlled by the town, it's a town account, it's audited by the town accountant, and kind of run all that
You can't
way.
move money from revolving to another place. Like, let's say the middle school is gonna be a big project. Can you take some of the
No,
revolving, move it to a
no,
different
because
fund?
the revolving fund, the expenses are supposed to be related to what you take the money in for.
Right.
So, we'll take the summer programs, as Rick said, we have what, 300 to 500 kids in the summer
No,
programs?
700 kids.
Okay, 700 kids. So so for each program, the parents will pay a fee, and the money, those fees then go towards paying the 110 part-time staff that are hired to administer those programs. So it can't be transferred to a major capital project such as the middle school fields.
so my question goes more to form. I imagine, it sounds like there might be some general laws that say that.
Yeah, there
A
are
youth
certain.
center can't, if you just started like from ground zero, and you didn't have any form in which this entity was operating, and you
Yeah.
could choose a whole bunch of them. Yeah,
Well,
could-
most
could you
likely, you probably
choose-
couldn't do it from day one,
Yeah.
simply because you're not gonna have enough money to start, because on an enterprise fund, all expenses must be paid from that enterprise
Yeah,
fund.
yeah.
So if you were
Right.
starting from scratch.
But I think he can.
Yeah.
But you'd have to, this is such a new, innovative program that you have. There's no, there's no
Yeah, I'm not-
track record for having
I'm not a
anything
strong
like this.
financial person to know the legal differences between the enterprise funds and a revolving
Well, it's
funds.
just interesting because you're making money, you're raising money hand over fist.
No, not raising.
Yeah,
No, not raising. Let's use the correct terminology. We are
charging
not,
for programs.
right,
You're
we're not
charging for
raising money,
programs.
yes.
So just to clarify also, when you use the example of the fields in the middle school project, that is a whole separate, that has nothing to do with our revolving account. What we are in charge of is we have a sponsorship program with all the youth groups called the new facility and fields fund, which basically, we're gonna be depositing in the town another $50,000 this year that we've been doing now for the last 4 or 5 years.
4 years.
I think we have we've raised $250,000, and that's stuff that will be going towards the fields. Like, my revolving account's not gonna go for the redevelopment of the middle school field. That's a whole separate.
Each of the youth sports organizations have agreed 5 years ago to put a surcharge on their registration fee.
Oh.
And then, because we started a program a number of years ago where different youth groups can adopt a field. And that sincerely helps Public Works, because Bruce doesn't have to maintain all these fields because he doesn't have A, the manpower, or B, the money to do so. So for instance, soccer may adopt a particular field. We set the standard, so they maintain that field, they fertilize it, they sometimes mow the grass, they line it.
No, they won't.
They won't, yeah.
Yeah, they won't.
Yeah, so they adopt, so they get preference for that field, but it's shared equally by everybody. So it's a way for us to keep the field, so as part of us upgrading the fields, if we have to do drainage or new fencing or something of that effect, they make this in total about a $50,000 a year donation. It's usually in the high 40s, somewhere between $48,000 and $50,000 that the town puts into a separate account that we then use to upgrade and do, not normal maintenance, but extraordinary upgrades to fields, because if not, you know, there's so much competition for the dollar, as you well know, of all people, that we wouldn't be able to do it.
Do you have, and do the revolving funds, this is first direct, a separate or offline budget that helps control and manage your expectations for
Yes.
what you expect to receive and how you're actually going to
Yeah,
spend it?
Yeah.
And this must be like just a little carve out.
And actually, we used to put it in the budget book, but we've ended up, we do, every year, he has to project current year and next fiscal year, how much he's bringing in and how much he's spending.
Do they have?
No, they don't have that.
So Lynn, we have to put this as part of our budget, so my expectations for next year, based on past practice of what we think we're gonna make and what our expenses are gonna be, and we've actually been right around the ballpark on the expectations every year on that. And in terms of the revolving fund, there's lots of checks and balances with that. I can't just go out and buy a new swimming pool for our back or something, and it's something that, obviously Bruce as my supervisor, and Andrew obviously would have to sign off on anything, and there's checks and balances on how much we can actually spend on
And if you
things.
look at the warrant book, there's actually a specific article where town meeting approves the use of revolving funds.
Yeah.
There's probably, I want to say maybe 8 to 10 listed.
Right.
And it sets the limits
Right.
of what is being brought in and what is to be spent out of the revolving fund.
Okay.
So what this ties into though a little bit is, I'm thinking back to what Andrew was saying the other week about how when you look at facilities, plan and program really work hand in hand, and that you start with the program.
Sure.
And that really informs it. And one of the things that strikes me as we're talking about this is, my recollection is that community services has a fairly robust account also right now, their own revolving.
School
School,
department, yeah.
exactly. And so, you know, I kind of think about the synergy, you know, obviously you're working hand in hand, but you really have two buckets, and there's a lot of overlap in what you do there. And it seems to me that, you know, as we move closer to this bigger project, what we could do, I don't know how big it could be, but when you look at really the size of it, because that revolving fund, I think is 300,000, 400,000?
Which community services?
Community
I don't know,
services.
to be
It's
honest.
pretty large. So it just says to me, there's a potential for really significantly more.
So one of the things
capacity.
that's happened in the last few years, Chris, is I found that like Rick DeLant was almost running some of the same programs I was running, and I thought that was kind of crazy. Nothing against his programs or my programs, but like, let's communicate. So I first started working with Hutch, and now with Dr. Price in terms of, let's start working together on some of this stuff, not just for communication and make sure we're not stepping each other's toes, but ultimately, what can we offer more? And the reality is, you know, what kind of money, you know, and that there, you know, ours basically goes out to all the programs we've done, but that is actually raising some money. I've talked to Rick about it, whatever, but I think as we're going forward, to have more planning with that, I think is a benefit for both of us.
And there's a lot of interaction and programs between the youth and recreation services and the school department. They have specific programs that deal with high school girls and middle
Girls groups
school,
and counseling.
middle school groups, et cetera. And it's the same way too, on the other end of the spectrum, what we introduced a few years ago is we introduced a lot of programs between the youth center and the senior center. Like I know we did a computer course because the seniors didn't know how to use basic computers, and the kids really ate it up and trying to help. You know, they kind of adopted a senior and vice versa, and so we've done a lot of interdepartment, department efforts like that, and there's a lot of it going on between the youth and recreation and the school department especially.
So if we wanted to like find somewhere of all these different funds, are they in like an annual audit in some way?
Well, they're in the annual audit. They have to be in the part of the annual audit, yes. So that they're part of the annual audit, and like I said, each department who has these accounts has to report as part of their budget submission each year. I mean, Lynn has all that information, and we could share it with you. I mean,
you know, from
I'm
the
just
police
thinking-
department, and that includes
That's-
grants too.
I mean, when I think of it, that's
Yeah.
the thing, I'm thinking for the school department, I heard
Well,
somebody
we don't do the
mention
school
one-
department, we don't do the school department, we only do the
Right,
municipal
but
departments.
I mean, if we're thinking of in the budget, all these different funds, you know, that's it, like, think of.
Yeah, and if I'm not
buses,
mistaken, when
there's
Jim
so many
Jim
different
Mealy, the
things.
last couple of years, has made it his practice to report the total of the school department, including grants and, you know, when the federal funding was in place and all that sort of stuff, so I think he plans to do that again this year, but I know he's done it the last couple of years where he kind of reports an overall, these are all of our different accounts and where we get funding, et cetera.
Because maybe that's it, maybe our committee would like to just at some point have an overview of all those different funds that are kind of revolving around, just so we're aware of them, you know, again, is kind of a.
Well, the revolving funds are limited. I think, like I said, if you look at one of the warrant books, it's probably 8 to 10 listed, but there are grant funds, and you know, the senior center has, and the library both have like a state aid program, so they have to account for all of that.
Right, and grants would be something kind of different, because grants normally would come in and probably would pay part of the budget. But we're talking about something that's these revolving
Right.
funds that, you know, you bring it in and you're using it for the same program.
Yeah, and you,
charge
well,
for
when
it.
you get the financial articles that you'll vote on March 28th or something like that, if I remember correctly, you'll have that article specifically for the revolving funds that you'll be voting on.
Right.
One thing you mentioned was that there was a balance in that revolving account.
Right.
So I think you mentioned $218,000.
200-something thousand,
Okay.
yeah.
And so this year, the budget's dropped down by about 18,000, but you're saying that's not gonna be a problem because you have money from that.
Correct.
That 200 and some odd
Yeah.
thousand.
And he's
So
used
How
that
does
budget.
that money accumulate? I mean,
Well-
because if you're bringing in money, you know, you pay $100 to send your kid to camp and they spend, what, 90 providing the service, so you get it, you know,
Yeah,
just for.
it's a little bit of that. Sometimes it's a larger number of subscribers than you that you planned. So you planned a program with 50 kids, so your staff, but then all of a sudden 70 kids signed up, and
Right.
you have enough
So that
staff.
extra money,
That same
right.
right. So
Right,
you
just your
can't.
economies of
And
scale.
there
sort of
are,
thing,
there are
yeah.
peaks and valleys during the year, so in
Right.
the months of September to December is our big membership, where you pay a yearly membership. But come April 1st, all the way to June 1st is our big push. We raise all this money for the summer programs,
Right.
which then gets expended July 1 through the end of August, so.
You receive, you don't raise.
Receive.
Right.
I got caught on that, right?
Okay, so some of it's just time.
It's a lot of it's
The
time.
money's
So
coming in
sometimes
before
if
you
Lynn
actually-
was to look at what my balance was at a certain time of the year, and we've always talked about, it's not a true balance
It's not a true
because
balance. I see what you
it's, what we're gonna be getting for the services in the springtime doesn't get expended till the actual
Right.
program
So
runs
it's
in the
it's like
summertime.
encumbered money, basically.
Correct.
You've
Right,
promised
you make the
services.
payment for the,
Okay.
you make the payment for the
Okay.
programs in
It's
April,
like
May,
rent.
but the expense
Yeah.
doesn't incur till July and August.
Okay, that's what I was trying to understand, how that balance built up.
Yeah, so it's a
and
little
that's-
bit, so
that's a timing issue. Okay.
it moves all over the place.
So,
Makes sense.
Ray, these all have specific high water marks?
Yes, that are voted at town meeting.
Okay.
Right, so the article
So
will.
some are allowed to go a little higher at town meeting?
Well, no, I think
No.
you're only allowed to spend the amount that's obligated
Okay.
at town, that's voted on at town meeting. We raise it a little higher just for this purpose.
Yeah,
But
that's what I'm trying to.
if we're spending $200,000, I'm just using this as an example,
Yeah.
the limit you see in the article may be 225 or 230, but it won't be 500.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That looks good. And then in terms of general maintenance, the town's taking care of your general needs, and you have like capital items in the next few years. You bought some vans and buses.
Yeah,
and so forth, they're
so,
all
you know,
set.
Andrew's done a great job in terms of our fleet maintenance. We had, if you notice, we usually had the vehicles that this department retired, the police department, we had them 20 years later. But over the last 3 years, we've actually updated. We have 2 minibuses if you drive by. One's actually used by the school department during the day for the special ed program. But we have 2 minibuses and a vehicle, our town car, where, you know, we've actually put in place, we're not gonna need a vehicle now for another 10 years or something to that effect, and we got a long-range planning with all that stuff. Similar with the facility needs is, you know, you are talking a building that's 15 years old now, when's it gonna need a roof, when's it gonna need, be repainted, whatever, and we work with Obviously DPW, but Steve Foster in particular around our facilities. We already have a couple of things in capital improvement over the next few years that would actually pay for some of those things, such as the roof. So we've got a plan visioned out on that whole thing, and we feel very confident that it's gonna fall within our budget and the capital improvement needs that we're gonna need.
So this might be a building that would be going on Steve's list.
It is on
It is-
Steve's
it is
list.
on
It
his
is,
list.
it's one of the buildings on Steve's list.
Correct.
And with, all right, and
Right.
with specific things on it.
Right.
This
Yep.
needs a tinkering with, and that needs
Yep.
whatever it
It
needs.
is.
Which I'm excited about. So for many years, our building was a separate entity. Ray actually called our department, we were kind of like the stepchildren of the town in a way.
Step
because-
cousins, I would call it.
Because we're actually part of the town, but not part of the town. So this was just another example where, we're now part of the whole plan as far as facility needs on this one particular thing. So Steve's in our building once a week, dealing with a number of different things with us in terms of making sure this falls in the needs. So our board was very concerned over the last couple of years, and Andrew came to the board and basically said, no, don't worry, the nonprofit's not gonna have to pay to have the building painted. The town will do this as part of the long-range plan of when to do it. So I feel, in the year 2016, I'm really excited about where we are in this whole plan with this, and the facilities is obviously the number one thing.
And just a couple of kudos too, as part of the maintenance of the grounds and whatever, we get donated services from several companies that come and do the grass and the mulch and do the bushes and all that sort of stuff. So that gets added to an expense that's not incurred by the town or the department because they're donated services.
So, just reading this over, do I have this right, that the kids, part of their programming is the community service of raising money for other charities?
No. Oh, you mean some
Sure,
of the
like
functions?
Some of the functions,
Yes.
like,
Some of the programs that
some
you
of the-
listed in your
some of the
accomplishments.
programs.
Yeah, we have like some of our leadership programs, like our Helping Hands is very involved with American Cancer Society and
Yep.
Relay for Life. So that is obviously raising money. I can use raising right now.
You can use
Raising money for a cause.
Raising
Type of-
money for this.
Yeah.
I think so.
And and this is part of the kids' programming?
Yeah.
Yes.
And do they like this?
They do. I mean, and going back to Chris's initial point here, one of my things is about empowering kids, okay? And one of my things is, I don't want to say our kids are not going to live a very sheltered life, but when we take them over to a soup kitchen in Lawrence, or we take them to Boston to do something, or we do a thing like a job fair, or even some of the stuff with the Relay of Life.
Thanksgiving baskets and
Thank you.
whatever.
We have a Christmas drive thing. That to me is all about developing the kid, which is what my number one plan is. And most of it's done at a very small cost too, but that's all part of, we want to get these kids to become very good adults and help them through a very difficult time of being an adolescent, and those are some of the things we do.
So, it's really a community.
Yeah.
It's,
Plus,
really.
One of the
High
things
school
to keep
has-
in mind too is that at one point, other than Rick, 3 of our 4 full-time staff were kids who came through the program.
They grew up.
And they grew up as part of the program, went to high school, went to college, and then came back to work and got jobs full-time as coordinators and whatever, helping the next generation of kids. So that's a good indication of the success of the programs over the years.
Plus, you're giving the opportunity to the high school, don't they have a community service requirement?
Yes.
They have to, how many hours?
Yeah.
or something like that?
They do.
And I know St. Michael's and the confirmation program, they have the same kind of thing, so actually all this.
Yeah,
is
we actually
very-
work together with all of those different groups, which is pretty cool too. So, the kids have done some creative things, not just coming and like raking leaves at the youth center. We're talking about, like I talked about, the soup kitchen stuff, or doing a number of things where we're really kind of teaching kids what the life's really like. And
Do they ever go, do they ever go door to door? Do they?
For
Whatever, go up and do cold calling? I'm just trying to figure out. I mean,
No,
it's
not really.
It's all done in groups usually.
Yeah.
It's done in groups.
And it's part of a sponsored organization
Oh,
or
you're gonna
something.
have something like a car wash.
No.
Or
something
Greater
like that.
Food Bank, or, you know what I mean, where they go as a group.
I was just wondering,
No, if they were knocking door to door, we'd have to register them with the police department, and they would need an ID issued for soliciting, but no,
Okay,
we
well, I
don't do
just
that.
was wondering how much mixing with the community they were having. It would be, if you're running.
We do a lot, but not necessarily knocking door to
Yeah,
door.
okay. Well, it's great training. Sounds like great training.
Do you have an idea of the reach? How many, the percentage of, I don't know who you consider be a youth, starting 10 to 14 or 16?
Of how many kids we maybe deal with in a year?
Roughly, like,
Yeah,
no,
we,
percentage-wise, how many of the kids you reach here in North Andover are using your service roughly?
So percentages wise, we're doing actually a needs assessment to kind of really talk about how much we're really doing on that. But the cold facts are, there are 800 kids that pay to become members of the youth center. And last year, we serviced 3,175 kids, 3,175 kids. Now, that could be kids that come, and we have kids that come to the youth center 6 days a week. And, you know, we got a few of them we wish weren't coming 6 days a week. But then we have a lot of kids that come for a specific reason, an event. There's a high school basketball league on Tuesday night, so I left tonight, and there's 75 boys playing in there. Most of them don't come to the youth center, with the exception of that one program that they've really, or kids that have worked with us. So the fact that we have 800 members and the fact that we last year serviced 3,100 kids, when you look at our entire school system, the amount of kids being...
About 5,000 kids.
We're hitting, and again, we don't rest on our laurels. We're trying to find out what kids we haven't serviced yet and why we haven't serviced them yet. And that's part of this whole community needs thing we're going to be doing over the next year.
And does that 3,000 odd number, does that include kids that come to summer fun, right?
Yes,
That
yeah.
includes that.
So that's a
Yeah.
total
So
of
that's, some of those
individual.
kids are young.
Right,
yeah.
total,
Okay, so
total
you're
number of
getting
individual kids
kids,
that are
individuals
serviced during the
discrete.
year.
Okay.
And is the youth center still, you know, when my kids were in middle school, that's when they mostly
Yeah.
used the youth center. Is that how it's still?
So it's still what we call, the middle school look at it as a clubhouse.
Yeah.
High school kids look at it as something that they want to be part of, youth council, a basketball league or something like that. The middle school kids come and hang out. Unfortunately, too many of them are on their phones every afternoon, but that's where they like to go and congregate. And that's always been, and that's more 6th grade up until 9th grade. 10th, 11th, and 12th, you see them drift off and come for a specific reason. And that's why when Chris brought up the job bank, that was like a great night for me, because when I went downstairs, I was like, I haven't seen some of these kids in a few years, and they gotten older, got jobs, got girlfriends, got busy or whatever, but this was something that they came and they were really into it. So that's kind of the stuff we're trying.
And let me
you have
just-
elementary school on Saturdays.
And just
Yeah.
and just a little side story, because if you've had kids and you know how tough it is to get them to take their shoes off or wipe their feet or whatever, the best sight you can do is when you go to the youth center on an afternoon, and there are hundreds of shoes outside because they're not allowed to wear them in the building. Okay?
Well, that's
and they
not
don't
during the summer.
They don't step foot in the building. Well, yeah, in the summer, not in the winter. But they don't step foot in the building with their shoes, and you have to walk over these, hundreds and hundreds of pairs of shoes. So try to get your kids at home to do that.
The biggest tribute to your comment, though, is the kids really value this youth center. They really take pride in it. Like, we have a rule that you're not supposed to walk on this front grass area, and the kids don't do it, but their parents, when they come, they walk on the grass. And I've seen kids say, Dad, you can't walk on the grass, and Dad doesn't really know why he's saying that. So I'll leave you with this quick thing. There's this little social media site that says and it's about North Andover, and it says, you've never really lived in North Andover if you haven't been kicked off the front grass by Rick Gorman. So, so my point is the kids really value that, and they want to keep it. And I think if Donna does a great job with our landscaping, Peter Breen does, but if you come by our building, it looks sharp, and it's 15 years, and most people will say,
I live right up the
wow, it
street,
looks almost
so
like it's
I
a
go
brand
by
new
it every
building.
day.
And that's the kids. I mean, they
Yeah.
take ownership of that, so.
Great.
That's right.
Well, thank you very much, and again, anytime anybody would like to come by for a tour, I'd be more than happy to give it to you. But again, thank you to the Finance Committee for always supporting us all the years. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You all right, folks?
Yeah.
He's going back to the youth center. Did you walk here?
No.
You actually have a car
I
tonight?
have.
Rick is taken to a walking program, so he walks to work every morning from Methuen. From Methuen, he walks to work every morning.
How far is this?
I think it's like 7 miles or something like that.
He's getting ready
Each
for
morning.
senior walking, right?
Huh?
He's getting ready for senior walking.
Yeah. You'd be surprised at how many seniors go to the building in the morning and like at 8 o'clock, and they're there till about 10, just walking the gym, and it's a social hour, or a social 2 hours.
Get everybody in this.
Okay, now,
Something more mundane.
Public Works. There's no snow.
That's it, right? Last year I came to this, and it was right before, we all descended into what? Right.
But as you told us, it's
Really
not
good.
just snow plowing, it's treating,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
And we still have plenty of winter left,
Maybe.
March.
Okay.
Anyways, so,
So, sure, take it away, Bruce.
Public Works says, yeah, probably coming for.
Page
158, 155 it starts on.
But let me just give you a little, overview. Obviously, Public Works is all of the streets, and sidewalks and refuse and snow plowing and grounds and structures. And the structures have been kind of a little between Steve and I, go back and forth between that and the refuse and vehicle maintenance. And then under the enterprise funds, of course, are in the sewer, and that's what we'll be talking about tonight. And as Ray said, my first administration budget is on 158. And that's pretty straightforward. That's where most of our clerical and non-union labor is in our administration of Public Works.
So how many people are in that salary group?
Oh, yeah.
We didn't bring the chart.
We didn't bring the chart.
We have a chart that
And that's
shows.
broken down by refuse.
Well, there's, I think there's
Yeah, is
somewhere
there-
8 to 10.
What page you on, Liz?
Yeah, they don't have the chart.
Oh, 158, and there's a,
Yeah, we have the other departments, we didn't list the primaries.
So you have it on the next page.
Yeah, but that's
on.
that's not the administration budget.
Yeah, about 8 to 10.
Right, administration and streets and
Yeah,
sidewalks.
she didn't put the bottom part on those two.
Yeah, 8 to 10.
Oh, yeah, we had it last year, right? Yeah, last year was-
It's gotta be roughly, what was it last year, Tom?
6.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
Yeah, okay, 6.
Yeah.
6 admin.
Yeah. No, some people are, that's why, some of them are in water. That's why I think.
Okay, so 6.
It's probably consistent from last year.
Yes, yeah, there's no changes.
Yeah,
So what was in the
salary
streets?
looks the same, yeah.
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 So,
What
So
was the
that's-
streets and sidewalks?
That's from last year, and then what about the streets?
What was streets and sidewalks last year, Thomas?
now, streets and sidewalks, you're gonna see a little bit of a difference. And I'll explain.
It was
Oh.
9.
9. Thank you.
Yep, okay. Any other questions on administration?
Just go.
Street,
Cost center by cost center.
streets,
Just go.
yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Oh,
now.
sorry.
Streets and sidewalks budget, now, if you look at that, there is a little bit of a difference in the salary there, but if you'll see later on, the same amount has been subtracted from refuse, so all I did was move a person around.
Okay.
Not a lot going on here, some additions to contract services. We actually have to do a lot of outside work for the trees, because we just got lucky, we got someone on, but we just need to keep that in the budget.
You got a tree climber.
We got a tree climber.
Yeah.
We
Finally.
did, finally, almost a year and a half. Thank you, Andover.
One of the major projects under this budget is going to be in FY17. We're going to start a replacement program of LED lights, street lights,
Right.
because we now own the street lights,
Right.
and it's part of our goal of trying to become a green community. So we will be our current contract, I believe, expires in the fall, somewhere in that area. So we'll our maintenance contract. So we'll be issuing a new bid specs that will include a replacement program for our streetlights.
So that's
Is that what
Siemens
this-
right now?
Right now it's Siemens, yes.
Okay.
And is that what the same as like the residential, where the electric companies will come in and give you the replacements? Or
No,
is that
because we now own all
We
the
own the
streetlights, so we have to pay to replace the lights. There may be programs, et cetera, but they're all our streetlights. They're 1400.
Well, my lights are my
13.
lights, but the utility company came in and changed all the bulbs. So
Yes,
it's
no,
not
they
a
won't do,
different
they won't
thing.
do that for a town.
See, they won't do that for streetlights, and Susan, we remember this when we were looking at it at that, is because streetlights are on in their low peak. They're only gonna take care, they wanna
The
take care
high,
of peak.
absolutely, got it,
But
thank
they
you.
did do some of our buildings, right?
They do the buildings, but
Yeah,
the streetlights
inside.
are
The
not
streetlights
in
are
that
purposely
program,
on
because of
low
that reason
times.
they're on it.
Thank you.
Also, a side question, my ears perked up when I heard green community.
Mhm.
Yes, you won't believe this. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to ask,
I was specifically instructed to mention that, or directed, whatever term you.
who in particular is pursuing this, and is there a timeline for that?
Yes, town manager's office is the one pursuing it, working with Public Works, et cetera, planning departments, et cetera.
And I will say that you may most likely see something on the town meeting warrant regarding it.
Excellent work.
Somehow
Having
we knew you'd be pleased, Susan.
Having lived that, Susan. Yeah.
So is that the grant program for the green?
It comes with a bunch of different facets, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Including the grant
Yeah.
that we will be eligible for.
So Bruce, the streetlight replacement's gonna be a capital budget program then? Because you're gonna replace the whole head, right? They don't just change the bulb, right?
No, they changed the bulb, just the bulb.
Just the bulb?
Yeah.
An LED.
They leave the
Yeah.
ballast and everything else
Yep.
behind?
Yep.
So we'll probably do that out of the operating budget a little bit a
Okay.
year. We're
No,
not
I'm
gonna
just
do them
saying
all,
this-
we're not gonna do it all in one year.
The way I understood it was, in most cases, they would replace the whole head, you know?
Yeah. We probably will do it as a 3 to 5 year program, because I
Whatever
think
they
it's,
do, it'll be-
I think it's
Yeah.
what, a 13?
It'll all be
We
operating
own
costs.
1,300, 1,400
I was gonna say,
streetlights.
yeah.
So we can't do them all, obviously, in 1 year, so it'll probably be a 3
It's
to
too bad
5 year
we can't
replacement program out of the operating
And then
budget.
Andrew had mentioned that there's gonna be a new rate based on the ones that are converted, right? Because
Correct.
there's no meters. There's
That's
no-
correct.
And we already have some LED lights, the new ones that went in on High and Water. If you've been down there, those are LED.
You like them?
Are you able to see the savings on that?
No, it's only a very limited
right?
number, it's only
You
a
have to do
limited number of
highlights
lights.
to really
yes.
Less,
see it.
Yeah.
that's probably 1% of the lights.
Yeah.
So LED lights, I know fluorescent lights take ballasts.
Yeah.
And LED lights also take ballasts?
No, these guys have ballast, the streetlights have a high-pressure sodium or mercury, have a different kind of ballast.
Ah, okay.
They have to be ignited.
We'll probably know a lot more about that next year.
Well, I'll just put that
really
down to
curious
ask
about
next
this.
No, I mean, you
Great.
know, we're gonna probably get a lesson on all that
Yeah.
as we go through this.
Yeah, I don't think, yeah.
Yeah, when we first started looking into it, I mean, the contractor says, well, we can do a whole street with 3 or 4 different lights, and we can space them apart, and then you can tell the difference. And we went, crap, there's a difference.
Yeah.
So we'll like Bruce said, we'll be learning a lot over the next year.
They did that with streetlights. I mean, they were typically like a blue, white color, and then the sodiums went to orange, right? I mean, so.
They always look terrible under them, any of them.
Well, one cuts fog better than the other, if you're gonna drive through fog.
I hope these new ones
They all
will
beat the
be
dog.
flat.
Write down
Okay.
High and Water. Good idea. Those are nice, they're really nice. Okay, any other questions on?
Yeah, I was wondering, I mean, I probably beat a dead horse in this, you doubled the outside detail.
Yeah, that's the police, yeah, we took the money out of other charges and expenses. We're always moving money around, and then that's really hard to predict, because you don't know whether you're gonna have water breaks or what you're gonna need for police details. So it looked like we probably were starting to run a little bit higher, so that's why we put a little bit more in there.
So just help me with these details a little bit. So you have a detail, and if it's you, DPW, then you are paying the police department.
Absolutely.
Okay. If it's, if there's a detail and it's,
We have-
Boston Edison.
We have 2 different
No.
detail. We have 2 different detail rates.
We don't do that.
Yeah, no. We have 2 different detail rates. One is a town detail, and one is a national grid detail. If all of a sudden they're doing some work, or Columbia Gas or whatever. So the town detail rate is lower than the outside detail rate. So any work that public, and the way it's worded in the contract is any direct payment or payment through a contractor by Public Works is the town detail rate. So for instance, if we have someone, if we have an outside company replacing all the water pipes on a street, or the sewer pipes, or redoing a complete street or whatever, even though the contractor, are you paying for those?
We always pay that because we don't have the contractor marking it up.
Right. They'll mark it up there 15% typically.
But
so-
we get the rate, what rate
You
Ray's
get the
talking about, we
rate,
get
the
that
lower
rate,
rate.
and the utilities get a higher rate.
So this
And
increase.
just on that too, the rate did go up.
But
so
it,
that's
and if
what
you, and it's unpredictable. If you notice in FY '14, it was $18,000.
Yeah.
So then $10,000 in '15.
It is unpredictable.
So
Yeah. So that's
Are you
why I
pro-
want to
is it
just make sure.
projected, Bruce, based on the fact that the type of projects that are coming up on the plan?
Well,
Or you just,
Sometimes you can, but then if we have some kind of a break or
Yeah, big
a
water main or
or a
something.
drainage issue or something like that, so. Tree issue,
So
the
there's
trees,
no-
so that'd come out of here. The water and sewer wouldn't, but the trees might be or something like that.
This is not appropriate to this discussion, but I'm going to ask.
We'll be more than
anyway.
happy to answer it, Karen.
All right. Is it possible to make money on the details that for National Grid?
We do, there's a 10% surcharge. The
Okay.
surcharge is not applied to town details, but it is because it has to pay for the administration of doing the details.
So we take a little bit of that and
So-
we
so
put
if
that
it's-
back into
so-
our general fund?
And this is, well, yes, it's considered revenue by the police department. So,
local receipts for the police?
well, no, no, they have to declare it as just,
You
yeah.
can't, you know where you are.
They didn't mean it.
I gotta get home tonight.
So if the detail, I mean, to make it simple, if the detail charge is $100, the private enterprise or the bank or the utility gets charged $110. $100 ends up getting paid to the officer, and $10 it becomes the administrative fee. That's a standard practice throughout, through various police departments.
Bruce, I have just a couple questions, because I wasn't here last year. The engineering services that jumped in 2016, and of course you're carrying in 2017, what is that for?
That will pay for any survey work that we have, any engineering that the
So we're
engineering
we're
department.
doing a lot more of that,
Yeah, we're
right? And
doing
is that the
That's
capital
really- that's really-
outlay as well?
That's really, the engineering is really Gene Willis's budget, and he gets, his engineering services, anything that he can't handle in-house. He does a lot of stuff in-house.
Right, but there's more happening, and that's
Yeah,
why
there's
the
more
numbers
happening.
are-
in
thank
those
you.
Talk about
things,
what's
right.
under capital outlay.
Hey, capital outlay, what's that?
Yep, capital outlay is 3 drainage projects that we're gonna do over the next year. One of them is on Sutton Street. I don't know if anybody noticed, it's right near the dance studio down there, just a little bit as you go towards 495. I don't know if you've seen it blown out into the road. What I mean by blown out, the soil has gone out there, so we have an issue there.
But that's not
We're trying to
capital
figure out
improvement?
exactly. Excuse me?
That's not capital improvement.
No,
It-
no, we
well-
always put, with the capital outlay, we always put a little bit of drainage work. It's not gonna be a really big drainage work. So there's 3 $20,000
Each project is less than 50.
things going.
Then it stays
Yeah.
here instead
Yeah.
of, okay, thanks.
So, and there are 3 culverts that are.
So is that punching up on Sutton Street at the stop?
No, it's just down a little bit, it's down through.
Down near the railroad tracks.
Right, it comes under the railroad tracks. And then, we thought it went under Sutton Street, but we don't know where it goes. So we're gonna be fixing that. When we dug it up, the pipe disappeared.
Why are those not showing up as percentage changes?
The budget
No,
last year was
no,
the
I was
same.
looking back a year.
Oh, okay.
I was looking at a jump from 15 to 16 that we're not
Yeah.
reviewing.
It's roughly, I kept it about
16 to
the same.
17 is the same.
Okay.
Yeah, I just played
Okay.
catch up. Thank you.
And then Bruce, I noticed you brought on an engineer on staff that I guess, I'm not exactly, if there's a better subgrouping to talk about it. But you said in the kind of accomplishments that you have a
We replaced one, yeah.
Replaced,
Somebody
okay.
left and we.
replacement.
Yeah, that staff engineer's
No,
been
that was
on for
always been
2
there for
years.
3 years.
Okay.
There was no increase in, yeah.
And that person would be under the administration budget, but
Okay.
it's been a
But it's-
position
you can
for
do-
a number of years.
And they do, and that's sort of is that helpful? Does that save the town money in terms of what kind of work do they do?
He
and-
does, he works for both Gene and Tim Willett in the water department, so doing any, markup, doing the petitions, the street opening permits, a lot of those
Okay.
things. Yeah, it's very, very helpful. Yeah, so good guy too.
A small thing, and it's probably more for Ray. I just saw this, the town manager put a salary reserve into the 2017.
We don't have contract yet with DPW, with Public Works, as well as potential raises for non-union personnel, such as Bruce.
So that's covered with that.
That's correct.
In your,
That goes back to our
It's not all
discussion from a
mine,
few
it's
minutes,
other
from a
people's.
few meetings ago, that
not like having
we
some
put it up
collective
front,
bargaining.
what we
Sorry.
anticipate.
Debbie's such a good
It's funny.
in your refuse and recycling budget, a 10% increase in contracted services, is that something that they've already told you?
page 160?
Yep, nope, that's my next one, 160. Yeah, that increase is for a couple of things. We have a step increase with the trash hauler, but also that's for hauling our recyclables down to Peabody. Remember, we used to go up here, and we went out to bid and got a very good rate with JRM down in Peabody. So that, but the downside of that is we have to pay Northside to haul it down there, and that's what that's in there for.
As part of our original contract services, when the recycling place was in North Andover, it was all inclusive, but it turns out that for a period of time, that location stopped paying us when we were bringing recyclable materials. So we ended up seeking proposals, and amazingly so, when we did a recent comparison with other communities in the Merrimack Valley, everybody pays to have someplace take their recycling. We get $20 a ton for our recycling.
Is
For
this,
with a 10-year contract.
the 10-year
No,
contract,
it's a
is,
20-year contract.
Is it?
It's 20 years, and it's less than that.
No, it's $20 a ton. I thought it was for 10 years.
I don't think so. I think it's 20.
well,
but
so that's
fine.
excellent, because
Pretty sure it's 20, but
isn't it because of the a drop in oil prices? I read someplace that the recycling,
That stopped taking it.
that stopped taking recycling
And that's why many
plastics.
communities have to pay
Right,
to
that's
someone to
right.
take their
Right.
recycling.
Right.
But we have a
We got it.
10-year
We got it.
contract.
Yes.
we have a,
Wow, to get that money, because it's cheaper to go out and bring the low-cost now glut oil in to make the plastics from scratch than it is to take the dirty,
So there's still.
crunched up recycles and do that.
And the thing is, we have to offset the fact that now the trucks are going to Peabody to dump the
Absolutely.
recycling.
Yeah.
But in a year or so, the pickup contract will end, and we will probably go out to bid, and we will work into it. Is it?
no, the hauling of recyclables contract doesn't.
No,
doesn't change.
but
Right.
the truck that brings it to the recycling. The contract for pickups will end. JRM doesn't do our pickups, Northside does.
Right, only for trash. That trash contract will end in 2017. The recycling collection will not end. That's under the permit
Right.
for, because they cited the, we get,
Right.
let me,
Yeah, that's right.
This isn't.
so, a few years ago, and Susan was, I don't know, you and I came on a little bit after this, I think, on this.
That's right.
The town cited, or Thompson Brothers cited a construction and demolition debris transfer station on Holt Road. As part of the citing, they gave, the town got, as part of the citing thing, free weekly single stream collection of recyclables. It's unheard of, okay? It's worth well over $500,000 a year. They also took our drop-off center and moved it to their location, which was a godsend, because if you're ever down there, if anybody ever went down there before that happened, it was a mess of stuff blowing all over the place. It was just a nightmare down there. 2 operations going on at the same time. So as long as that's permitted, those 2 things will occur, okay? So in that contract, if we moved from IPR, which we did, as Ray was explaining, to somewhere else, then they had the right to renegotiate the hauling of that, because they were taking it to IPR for nothing, because it was in town. And so that's why there's an increase.
And just one little further clarification. Our recycling agreement is with TBI and TBI. TBI is associated with Northside Carting, so TBI actually contracts with Northside Carting, even though they're all under one ownership, to get our recycling. So the agreement with TBI, as Bruce said, if we moved to a different location, they could negotiate transportation costs. So we now have a 3-way agreement with TBI, with Northside, to haul to Peabody.
Northside picks up
Got it.
everything. for us.
Yeah, I'm glad you got it, because it took us a while to
It's
figure
a
it
long
out.
time. It's convoluted. It's convoluted, but it's,
Do we have
we do
big-
pretty good.
Do we have big gas tanks?
Big gas tank.
Fuel tanks down at the DPW, 20,000 gallons each, 150 diesel. and
Do you go to
150 gas.
BJ's?
No, we're under a consortium, we buy our fuel.
Okay.
Where are you going now?
Who wanted me to go to BJ's? Yeah, that'd be
With
good.
those little red
Okay, we're all set with refuse and...
Yeah, so
Yeah.
in general, I guess the story is, there's a little bump, but it should generally
Yeah.
be maintained consistent. We shouldn't see any like
No.
bigger bumps in the next few
Oh, no,
years.
no.
There'll be a new contract that will be
Well-
probably being negotiated next year
That'll be for the collection of...
for the collection of
trash.
Yeah.
Right. And, yeah, we'll see
Yeah,
what happens with that.
we're approaching the last year of a 5-year contract.
When does it end?
That's August 20...
17?
So it's fiscal
17,
18,
2017,
fiscal 18,
thank you. Yep.
August 2017.
Great. Yeah. No. So I think we're ready to move on to vehicle maintenance.
Um,
Down.
Again,
It's
not...
an enormous budget.
It's an enormous budget. It's down a little because the vehicles that, we're gonna buy a few vehicles that are a little less expensive than last year. That what we're gonna buy are less vehicles. And finally, structures and grounds, and that's, taking care of the parks, the playgrounds, and then some of the building. Not an awful lot of, much going on, increase there a little bit in the water and sewer rate. Joanne, who pays that, said, put a little extra in, I'm always balancing that one out, so that's why we put a little bit more in there.
There's a little bump in overtime. Why is that?
I moved overtime, we do a lot of overtime in this because a lot of times we can't get into the schools. Some schools we have to do it on weekends, and then sometimes it just gets ahead of us and we have to do a little bit of overtime. So I moved it from vehicles to this.
Okay.
Thank you, I forgot that. Yep.
Snow and ice.
Skip right over that.
Why did you drop, why has it dropped so much from 15? I'm kidding.
Back to
It's
snow and
always,
ice
yeah.
though. When we do have snow and ice and it has to be removed, is all of it being removed on an overtime basis?
Oh, that's a good question.
No, it depends on when the, well,
When the storm hits.
well, there's a couple of, there's a lot to this question, okay? We do not pay overtime if the snowstorm occurs during working hours, obviously. Most snowstorms, of course, happen at night, no weekends. I don't know if you always
Let's
say.
hope
Or
Good for the schools.
weekends.
Good for the schools, bad for me. That's all overtime plus the contractors. When, this year we changed how we do downtown a little bit, maybe you're going towards that. And what happens now is we just plow downtown now. We don't remove all the snow during the events. It was costing us a lot of money. It was taking a lot of resources, directing it to the downtown area. So we plow it, we plow the sidewalks, and then 2 days later with our own forces, we don't pay the contractors, we come in and clean up a little bit and take it to us. And that's happened twice this year.
So let me ask you this,
Only.
have you gotten any feedback from the property owners, from the business owners with that shift in process?
The only feedback that I received is, there was a person on Main Street that did not like the idea that the backup alarms were on, and the police had to be called about 4 or 5 times. He's in the middle of the street in his shorts and T-shirt screaming at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Because when the truck's back up, they're required to have
Yeah.
backup.
And we can't shut the...
It's so loud, yeah.
Yeah, we can't shut
It's
it.
required.
So, that's the only
Saves lives.
one. And we got to report it on the same thing, and I answered that, and it was fine. But that was,
Give me our badge now?
yeah.
Can you modify the decibels of those things?
No, they got a
Like
warning.
what?
It's like a train
That's
warning.
what we went over.
Yeah.
No, in fact, we got a complaint the other way from the trash contractor didn't have this on, and we went back and forth on somebody, they were backing down one of the streets and didn't have it on, and we had to go after them. And the police had to go after them, make sure they
Bruce,
put
we
their
have
stuff
a
on.
quick question on, we have a new budget item, phone?
Yes. The new budget item, that's for
There
our,
was no deviance because there wasn't anything to deviate.
You want to explain that?
yeah, I'm gonna explain that right now. That is for a GPS system. We have all the contractors on a GPS. They're Verizon phones,
Okay.
and that's to pay for the system.
Okay.
And again, we're still working out the bugs. We've only used them twice.
So you make-
Thankfully.
Thank goodness. Spent a lot of money.
That's okay.
Tim,
That's
stop
good.
jinxing us.
That's easy to rely on now.
So all the contractors have a GPS system now?
All our contractors in all their vehicles have a flip phone, and they turn it on at the beginning, turn it off when
So
they're
you can
told.
keep
to turn it
track of
off,
them?
And we can keep track of them.
Is
Very
somebody
different.
managing them? Like, I'm come from Buffalo, New York, so they were managed to make sure they did not cross over, they did not go on the same streets or anything. So is this just now tracking, and then eventually it's gonna move to that?
It probably will.
That's a
One
complex
of the things
system.
we can use this for is that, if we look at it and see how many times they go down the street. It's pretty much right now just to track them, and pretty much keep them honest.
The state has this too, don't they?
That's why they're so.
They do,
Yeah.
the state.
Those guys sleeping under the bridge and stuff?
Yeah, things like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So, ours is a little bit more
I knew you
difficult
were
because
getting
it's,
a dig,
I said
Jennifer.
state, I didn't say town.
yeah, the routes are a little bit
Yeah.
different. Theirs
Fine.
are,
I get a lot of digs from.
Yeah.
so,
That's
that's
good.
good. Yep. Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
Verizon system's pretty good, and we're seeing how it works this year.
That's great.
Okay, should we
Water-
go to the water department
Water
on?
departments, that's
Page
on
203.
203. Yeah, it's just a few changes back and forth in this budget. We moved some things around to kind of cover where we felt we really spent our money and then others. Repairs and maintenance, spending a little bit more on the pump repairs and water mains and those type of things come out of their generators. There's some new regulations in the lab from the state what we have to measure for, so some of the expenses in there are some of the materials that we have to use to do the sampling and analysis. And some other equipment. We have a nice lab up there, able to save a lot of money by not
And you're
farming
gonna
that
get
out.
another one, aren't you? An assistant drinking water man.
Well, no, that person has left and that's a replacement.
That's
just
a
filling a
replacement,
position,
Filling a
yes.
position.
So-
No increases.
So let me ask you the question that's on probably a lot of people's mind, but they don't want to ask it, and that is, obviously, lead is something that everybody is aware of now. Is there any way, any statement, any place that we can convey to our citizens where we are in this community in terms of that safety
Well,
level?
they certainly can, go we go on the website and see what some of the sampling and analysis is there. We go out in the system and sample for lead at various
So is
locations.
there a
all over
written
the place.
statement then with those, with that data on the website?
I have no idea if it's a written statement.
But
I don't
there's
know
a-
about you talking.
But there's also a short pamphlet report that the
That
water
goes-
treatment
yeah.
plant issues every
Yeah,
year.
every
too.
year. So you get, there's a statistic, there's a report that comes out, consumer report.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, the state doesn't want you to mail it anymore, they want it to be paperless, so it comes out. We have it on the website, so you can look into that and see where our lead and sampling and.
I'm just wondering whether or not that might be something to, because it's kind of an awareness, maybe there's a place to make that a little more visible for folks. It's really, it's a recognition of our, of how well things are running, you know. Sometimes we tend to put out data because we're
Right.
playing defense. This is really an offensive to say, you know,
Sure.
we're holding this level of standard. We want you, the citizenry, to know that's part of the bargain of what you get
Yep.
with our water department. So I'm just thinking this might
Good
be
way
a
of selling
good
it.
time
Yeah.
to
Especially when you're in
convey
Flint
that,
every week.
given.
Yep. So I think if you go on the websites, you'll see some of that. We can make it a little bit more proactive. But the other thing is different with this system. It's a much newer system than what you're talking about out there. The older pipes are the ones where the
Yeah.
lead leaches out.
I'm not worried
So-
that, I mean, I'm confident, and I have looked at that in the past, actually, it was in the quarterly mailings.
Right.
There tend to be a reference to it, but I'm just thinking sort of, since it's a public issue sort of a thing, this might be a time to sort of, kind of pat your own backs that.
We just did a presentation last night at the selectmen as well on the lake. So, and I did touch on it last night as well, all of that. So, and a lot of people, what people forget too is that there's something in between the lake and what comes out of your tap. It's called water treatment plant, efficient water treatment plant. When the trash truck went in last year, people were calling us and said, "Can I drink the water?" Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You're fine. You got a lot in between you and that trash truck, so. yeah. But that's a good suggestion. We'll take a look at that, and I'll ask the water treatment plant if we can put something up there on that.
I
Okay, and then I mean, I'm looking a little bit at electricity budget, kind of sees a trend over last couple of years, and I was just wondering if we add any new equipment that would explain that, or is that more, from 387 and 215, and we're asking for 538 this year, and we asked for that last year.
Yeah, we asked for that last year. Well, one of the biggest problems that we have up there, and we're in the process, I talked about it at the CIP, is we need to get rid of the ozone system. That's a big hog on our electricity, so we'll hopefully once we
Use
get
a
rid
lot
of
of
that.
electricity, isn't it?
Yeah, that will come down, but it's getting pretty old, and that's probably would relate
This
to
also
the
covers the booster pump stations too, right?
Yeah, well, we added a booster pump station over the last couple of years too.
That's what I'm saying, the electricity for the booster pump stations all comes out of this.
Oh, yeah,
budget,
the
too.
booster pump stations, yeah, oh, yeah. There's 4 booster pump stations, one we added over the last couple of years, so
Okay.
that could be.
And I'll take the opportunity between the water and sewer budgets to let you know that as the town manager announced at the selectmen's meeting a couple of weeks ago, we anticipate water and sewer rates to remain the same.
Right. No, that's great.
Bruce,
Yeah.
the swimming hole, Stevens Pond.
Try not to refer to it as a whole, but that's.
Yes. Stevens Pond Beach or whatever, with its own pavilion.
In the Midwest.
That's funny. That's funny, that's good. No, that's not in the water budget. That's all, management of that is in the streets.
Youth and recreation.
It's, well, and some of it's youth and recreation, and then the issue that you're probably talking about, which is the blooming algae that we had a few years ago. Is that what
Oh,
you're
well,
talking
no,
about?
actually, it was the use of the pond in conjunction with the woolen mill.
Okay.
Wasn't a woolen mill, Stevens Mill. It was a textile mill, and they were doing something with that pond.
I'm just, why is this years ago? Because I'm thinking of the algae problem. which
No,
was
years
shut
ago.
down.
Years ago, it was
Years
up-
ago,
yeah,
we're talking 100 years ago.
That was upstream.
Right,
It would have,
okay.
it would have been upstream of the mill. That was upstream. The mill was where the condos are,
Right,
Yeah.
below.
below
Okay.
it, downstream.
But is there any connection between that body of water?
Yeah, it's all part of Cochituate Stream.
But it all
goes
flows
from
down.
our water supply through the hatch, which there's a hatch there that
Right.
keeps the water in our water supply, and down through underneath the old railroad bed, and through Stevens Pond, and then to underneath Stevens Street, and then goes down through the mill pond, and then goes under the condos, and comes out next to the DPW really, and then goes all the way down to the Merrimack River through.
Goes down to my
So
building.
the
Goes through by your building, right by his waterfall down.
By the
there.
waterfall?
Yeah.
So the process water from the woolen mill, or
Yeah.
whatever it was, textile mill,
Went downstream.
went downstream.
Yeah.
And, okay, so
The
I'm
beach is
just
upstream.
I'm just looking at sediment, very old sediment in the bottom of.
No, there wasn't
that.
any industry upstream of that. There's not a
Okay,
lot.
so, all right.
Most-
Never mind.
Our weed problem and a green
Yeah.
algae problem is a big issue with that because of all the nutrients that go into it. from
Well,
the ions and
exactly,
things like
but
that.
I,
So,
you know.
I noted in the commentary that you've noted market improvement relative to, I'll call it dog walkers, the way you enforce it. You brought it up last year, and you noted how really significantly bad it was, and yet, in the write-up here, it says, look, we've got some things to turn around, and I just want to say, whoever pushed it was good.
Because we put together what Andrew called the poop group.
Clever.
Gotta have some humor.
And we had representatives of, conservation and health and youth services and the people who work down there and my water treatment plan and a lot of people that were involved in police and trustees of the reservation. And we looked at those issues. We came up with some public education. I think you've seen a lot of stuff. We put things in the newsletter and other things. Put along with signage. We have barrels. We have the bags out there. We have a little bit more of awareness and the police enforcement out there. So, and I think I mentioned the other thing is, one of the things, if you're a summer employee at DPW, after you go around and pick up all that poop, so that people can swim there, you probably go right back to college again, so. Big difference.
I can only offer him a better job. They really appreciate
Yeah.
it.
So, anyways, okay, we're sewer.
Yes, I think we're ready for sewer on 206, 209.
Yeah, not a lot of changes here. We, like I think I mentioned earlier to Dawn, we have a little higher assessment from Greater Lawrence. And the reason for that is that fortunately Lawrence is doing a really good job of reducing their flows. And there's only so much out of the pipe. So if one's smaller, everybody else is a little bit bigger. So that's what happens. We're all, the other communities are a little bit up, their flows are down.
It's quite an increase though, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a little bit of an increase. So, and that's, again, very unpredictable. And we have some cushion, Andrew put some cushion in there, because we're not sure exactly how this is going to go. And then we end up getting some money back. So you can see that we've taken some money out of the other budget, put it in there. That may, depending on what we have. This is a very tight budget. Sewer, if you remember over, the sewer rates, there was a lot of debt service. And remember the whole story about the debt service. And we're starting to see that. We're reducing that. And sewer was always, and we have 21, 22 pump stations that are aging. And one of them, if you've been by Race Pond, there's been new ones going in right now. It's a pretty sophisticated pump station, pretty cool. Down pretty deep. I don't know if anybody got a chance to look at the sections that went in. They went in last week. There were 4 sections of about, I would say, 5 feet each.
Wow, so it pumps it down
Where
that
was it?
far?
Oh, yeah.
Where's this being done?
Right now, Race Pond, there was already a pump station right next to it, and we're putting this new one right next to it, and then we'll switch it over. But it's
Right, that's
you know,
on
where the garbage truck went in.
On 133, right before you go up the hill.
Yeah, right.
So Race Pond's on the other
Where the
side.
truck would.
Race Pond's on one side and the lake's on
And
the other.
Chitchowig's on the other.
And it's on the Race Pond side.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing about that, you'll enjoy this, is they dug down, 20-something feet. We're in between Race Pond and we're in between the lake. Hardly any water coming out. They have a 2-inch electric pump pumping out. There's hardly any water coming out of
You're
it.
kidding.
They lucked out on that. Yep, there must be a lens, something in
I
there
figured
to
you
stop
probably
it.
have to have a
Very compacted, tight
full-time mud
soils.
sucker going there or something.
They got, no, it's hardly any water coming out of that. It's incredible, and I think they really saved themselves a lot. Anyways, that's a little aside. I know you'd enjoy that.
So that's gonna be a tight force main across, so
Yeah,
that
we're using the same force.
lake and the,
Oh, yeah, there's gonna be a connection, using the same force main.
Yeah.
You said
And it's out of the flood, this is out of the floodplain.
yeah.
so quick why our sewer assessment went up. Can you just explain that again,
Oh.
real quick?
Okay, Lawrence is going through a lot of improvements over there. They're
Yeah.
trying to separate their system. It's a combined system. I
Street
heard
drains
one of the
first.
stories is they found a whole stream going in and eliminated it. So their flows into, our assessments in the operation of the treatment plant is based on the flow that goes through there. And so it's allotted back to the communities on how much flow they put through. So, but it's a set pie. So if you reduce one of the people in that pie, then everybody else
Has to make up.
Has some fixed cost you have to reallocate.
Yeah.
So Andover gets increased, we get increased, and Methuen gets
Salem, New
increased.
Hampshire.
All the septic
Salem, New
companies got
Hampshire, and they don't
increased,
get a
everybody
vote.
got increased.
Right.
They got a new person on board and then the rates went up. Yeah. But they got a lot of projects going on there.
Lots of stuff.
Yeah, all the time.
They got that digestive thing.
Well, I was asking Bruce earlier about the digester and when they're gonna turn that on. Yeah. We don't know yet.
Great. Any other questions for Bruce on water and sewer?
Well, one more. Is our water trapped in, this is sort of a plutonic area, isn't it? I mean, a lot
The
of
lake?
Granite, the lake, is the lake in a granite?
Well, there's soil here, there's some granite there. We have a lot of springs. What people understand is there are some tributaries, but that's a lot of spring fed too as well into that lake. So there's granite there, but there's also a lot of till and so forth. I mean, like I was just saying, right next to it, if you go across the street from it, we just dug down 20 feet in this really tight sand. It was unbelievable. It was like tight beach steel. Unbelievable, almost, it was silky, but tight, yeah. And then, yeah, it was unbelievable.
But it was not clay, but it was.
No, but I think there's a they're assuming there's a layer of clay in this,
That's- yeah.
it's hot pan that was keeping. the
Water doesn't go through clay very well.
Right, right, doesn't, it's very porous.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce. It's always good.
Right.
Thank you.
Anything for me before I leave you to the rest of your agenda?
No, I think we're.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you, and thank you.
Should I hang around for minutes?
I don't think so.
I was thinking when you said.
I will reserve comments.
A few years ago,
Yeah.
this was one of the first 2 years I was here, I came to the finance committee, I had one final thing, it was a second thing of the sewer, I think, that had to come back. And John Simon was on, and was gonna be on, and we're going back and forth. I said, no, John, you go first. 2.5 hours later, I was out of there in 15 minutes.
He learned his lesson.
I learned my lesson, I never do that
It's
again.
never off.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay, so I admittedly was not here last week, so I know we had a discussion about the minutes. I've read it, I've thought about it a little bit, and I think we should just start with sort of a philosophical discussion about the purpose of the minutes and what we want to use the minutes for and kind of what level of detail is appropriate. Because so why don't I just start off by kind of summarizing what I thought I heard and what I think, and then we can have a couple different comments and try to, round up and come to a consensus on what we're doing. So, I noted Don's comment, I talked a little bit to a few people that, in general, our minutes are a lot longer than they were in previous years. And it is true that the more you put in, the more you leave out. In some cases, less is more. And I say that just to say that, if 4 people made comments and you leave one out, then you're incomplete. But if you say, like, there was discussion about the merits of X, and not specifically delineate who said what when, maybe you still sort of have the essence of what went on in the meeting. And the question really is, what's the purpose of the minutes? Are they to, kind of summarize what went on, or are they to, kind of Talmudic stuff that you can go back and say, I said this at that meeting, or is it really just sort of a, a sense of what went on at the meeting?
Or not editorial opportunity.
Right, and so, I think we should, I think we've made a lot of strides in transparency as a committee, and the fact that anyone they don't have to rely on the minutes to know what went on at the finance committee meeting, because they can watch a recording. They can watch, this year they can watch a lot of recordings, and in future years and in prior years they could watch us live, and they can still watch a recording. So I think there's many opportunities for people to get the information about what was said at the meeting. But I think maybe my thought is we should strive to, to obviously what things do you want to note? You want to note what came up. You want to note any requests for information. You want to note any documents that were brought forward and they're part of the record with the minutes that goes up on the website and everything. Those are all important things. And the essence of the conversation. So that's kind of my summary and thoughts, and I guess, Don, if you want to add a little and then we can move on.
Well, going back to what we had been doing the last few years, it's been kind of a summary. And it's been short and sweet. I think the more we added to it, the more it got added to, so
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly. I don't know if we need that detail,
Yeah, I was trying to think of, do we ever, in your experience, have we ever gone back to the minutes of our meetings to inform some?
We have on some
discussion?
things. Yeah,
Just
but
that one thing.
the one thing on the collective bargaining.
The collective bargaining, that would have been
Article, yeah.
useful to have at
Yeah.
that time. But any other time, do we find ourselves making constant reference?
Once in a while, I can recall.
But you know, back then, we're happy to have had maybe some sort of reference to that information. Today, to repeat what Bill said, it's already electronic record.
Right.
This
Yeah.
meeting right now is an electronic record. Can you hear me, Stan?
Is it, I
And,
thought they
uh,
were not being,
And therefore,
are you being recorded?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
So it's being
live
archived.
tonight.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
it's
you
just a
said video.
Yeah, oh, no
Yes.
video.
But
This is just
voice is
audio.
always recorded,
Oh.
wherever we are.
Well, we have video. I mean, we have video. I mean, it's just not being broadcast live. So if
Oh,
you
no,
go to the,
tonight it is live.
We have
Oh, tonight it
video
is
cameras
live?
in here too?
Yes, because I
Say
held
hello to
up
the
Brian.
fans.
Oh, you guys are watch.
no, we've had.
We did not know that.
Yeah.
I thought it was just audio, but not
No.
video.
Not
Okay.
video,
So
No,
I
we
think-
talked about the audio because the mics don't come down very
Got it,
low, but
okay.
Yeah.
there's video in this town as
I
well.
think-
That thing,
Okay,
that thing
anyway.
Yeah.
going right
But here's
ahead.
I was just wondering, when you dictate, you're going verbatim word for word off of the recording to write?
Well, I do sometimes, and sometimes I just try to summarize. I was a little confused this last time because
Yes.
we sort of talked about it a little bit, so this last one, I did a summary. The one prior,
Was
I-
in detail,
I
But
did
when it's more
only.
difficult, we can probably know how we'd want to summarize it, but if I'm in your shoes, how do you know what to summarize and not to summarize unless we have a very detailed format we
yeah.
follow
Yeah,
every
but I
time?
think Angela also came off a committee that maybe some of the stuff would have to be defended maybe legally somewhere.
Yeah, I
And
think
even
you,
the-
You know, and you
those
need
were
more, you
televised.
need more of that.
Right.
And do we need that? Are we gonna be subject to some legalities there?
probably
No.
not.
Probably
but
not.
Certainly, I think your
And
focus
and
was
the
on
newer
what.
ones are all televised now.
Right.
So,
Oh.
And right, you can go to the recordings, so the
Right.
idea
Yeah.
would be if there's a set, these are the major topics covered, like collective bargaining, here's the link to the video recording, here's the documents reviewed, Dropbox links,
Yeah.
and here's a list of homework or request for information, where
how unlikely it is right now in the state of our government that we'll have something controversial pop up. I'll find it hard, but that date will come, and that kind of item ought to be
Yeah,
popped into the.
right.
into
Well, we
the
need to
minutes.
indicate that.
Absolutely.
that
so
would be a
they-
major topic covered, but then the video to go to the word salad.
Andrew, I don't agree with you.
Yeah.
You hear the reasons, and everyone
Yeah.
raises their hands, and says, we don't agree with you. That- I don't see it
But that would be a
happening.
motion, and that would be recorded because we record
That
all
has to be
emotions.
recorded.
Yeah.
You know, for-
Does somebody want to do guidelines on how the finance committee wants their minutes to be done? I mean, maybe we should do that.
We're kinda getting there.
Right.
Yeah, so,
Well-
you know, write it down and then we've got it, that's what we're gonna do all the time.
I like what Bill kind of started off, which is a framework. I mean, reality is, we have it all on tape, but you need sort of a roadmap
Yeah.
to that, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, that roadmap is basically, what were the high points, what were, as you said, I think you kind of ticked the major points. Documents requested, information, you know, those sort of major pieces that, so when somebody goes to look at the tape, they go, okay, I
Gotta
know
go find
what's
this.
roughly in
Yeah.
here, I know.
Yeah.
To me,
Another-
does that cover it?
Yeah, I
Become-
think, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I think that this document can be sort of, like you said, a roadmap or an outline
Yeah.
of what people will see on video. I mean, it might even be helpful at some level to jot down some time points. So that if somebody really wanted to go back to the record, all they'd have to do is go, oh, discussion, well, let's see, at this point, it was, 8:00 PM. At 8:05, they had discussion. It would help you navigate the video.
Yeah.
I mean, and it doesn't have to even be a lot of time points, but just, if you were gonna add anything that would make it more useful, I
Yeah.
would think putting some timestamps in the minutes
So
as
like-
you went through it.
Just
So like
like
Bruce
Bruce here,
testified
right?
at
Exactly,
8:05.
Bruce left it, yeah, exactly, and then you would know that, okay,
Does
I
that
have to
help,
fast
Angela?
forward to the tape this far.
I'd
Yeah.
have to,
You
I'd
know?
have to like listen to the North Andover camp to see when something, what time it was.
Oh.
Or we
That
could,
was-
well, wait a
you
minute,
know
but
what
hold
I
on,
mean?
we could do this, at
But
the
you
end
don't
of
take
each
these live, you
section,
take them
right,
off.
live, we could say, the major topic that just was covered was X, collective bargaining. Check the time, write it down. And if you can do that during the meeting, you don't have to go back to the
So you
She'll
don't
have to
take the
move
meetings,
her
you
chair
don't
over.
take the minutes during the meeting?
No,
She
She
goes
goes
back
back
to
to
video?
recording.
no, I'm taking minutes now,
Oh.
but I'm not looking at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I understand that, I'm
Yeah.
saying that would be a new thing, but you,
She's got a voice recorder.
okay.
Yeah.
She goes back
Okay.
later like a
It
Oh,
does.
okay.
But, you know,
Yeah.
it's, when people are making, well, like you said, Andrew, I disagree with you. I would like to see that contribution by the speaker go into the record. I mean, I'd
then
like
you're gonna
to
get
see.
the habit of
Go ahead
saying-
and make some guidelines.
Or if,
Yeah.
you know, I was pursuing a line of questioning, let's say, for instance, with the library lady and the senior citizen lady, I was trying to determine from them what their needs were for a new kitchen.
Mhm.
I wanted her to talk about cooking in the kitchen there, so we could figure out what we were going to be doing later on with the senior center. And maybe this isn't part of the FinCom's job, but I think, ultimately, maybe it is.
It's gonna have an impact at some point.
It's going to have an impact, and I also wanted to find out what the other usages were, for other, like the uptick in the demand for Alzheimer's support groups stuff. It was going up, and I wanted to, make sure that that got in, type of thing. Whereas if, where do you draw the line on that?
Are
But it's
you
gonna be
wanting
on
to make
video.
sure that gets in a written record, or do you want to just make sure that that's captured
It could be
in
a-
the audio? That it was discussed?
Well, it was discussed.
Because-
You could sort of say like, so-and-so asked a question about the increase of, demand for services.
Right, but how do you notify that
There
you
was-
want it written?
There was a general discussion
She
about the
doesn't know.
demand for
Right.
services.
Yeah.
And then,
Why not make a motion? Why not, I don't know how, I'm sorry, what are the rules about making motions?
Anybody can make a motion.
Okay,
Except for
so,
him.
so maybe the rule is anything where there's a motion made has to be in the written
Yeah. I
annotation.
think that
So
was-
therefore,
yeah.
if we disagree, Andrew, with something, I make a motion to put that into.
Put it on record.
On record. And we just say it,
And we
and
say,
that
"Oh,
automatically
ayes
triggers
have
her
it." Yeah, yeah,
in.
yeah.
That would make it easy.
That'd make it a
better.
lot
No, it
easier.
would, it would, because what's important to one person might not be important to
Right.
somebody else.
Exactly.
And it's, sometimes somebody thinks like maybe what
Right.
you're saying is very important.
But if nobody backs my
somebody else
motion,
might
then
not.
I know I was
So
the only
be-
one that thought it was important, so it doesn't go on the
So be
record.
prepared for that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Be prepared.
Jennifer, no.
But are you saying you want, like, okay, anything that has a motion to it,
Yeah,
of
definitely.
course,
That's
in
good,
here,
yeah.
I've
And the-
always done that.
And who made the motion?
Motion,
Yeah.
anything to get written.
And seconded, yeah.
All right. Also, too, do you still want me to put the times? That might be a little difficult
Well,
sometimes.
you might have to sit in a different place depending on where we're at, too, so you can see the clock.
Yeah.
Or like, we'll get you a clock and.
You know, I try to do it in order anyways.
Right.
Candidly,
You know what I
If you're
mean?
doing it in order.
If you just candidly, just take this,
Right.
and just say, okay, Bruce was at whatever time, 7:45, and
I mean, maybe I can do that when they start to talk.
That's a
Yeah,
nice-
start an
Yeah,
ad.
yeah, that
We
that
move from one
that
agenda
probably
item to
would
the
be a
other
lot
now.
easier.
Yeah.
You know,
Doesn't have to be exact.
Yeah, I'm
because
just
somebody
saying,
2
if
hours
you're
of
gonna have this as a
video-
roadmap, the one thing that would be helpful would be times.
I
With some
agree. It
indication,
doesn't
so
have
you
to
could
be that
fast
many.
forward and,
If
yeah,
I
it doesn't have to be a lot, but it
Okay.
will give you some idea of
for
where,
each
of roughly
topic
where you need to
that
go.
we
I
have on
agree.
the agenda,
What
I'll
to
say
do
when
next.
it started.
That's it. Because
Yeah.
that's all we
People
want
wanna
is where they
say-
scroll forward in the video to get to that section.
You don't have to
That's
sit there
it.
all,
You
during
don't even
the
need
hour
to
and a
capture
half,
when
or
they
the
end.
hour
Okay.
it
It's
is.
just
And-
done.
And you like me to do a little summary of each one, but,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, like how it was done in the past. I just,
Well,
Review
you
a
know what, Patty
DPD
kept it-
budget starts at,
yeah,
7:05.
I also reference pages anyways too, so,
Yeah.
That's nice.
that are on the
Very
bottom.
good.
That's helpful.
Okay, okay.
And now you
I
have to
feel,
There we go.
Have to agree on the minutes.
Okay. So we all, should we make a motion about the guidelines in the minutes, or what?
It's gonna be complicated.
Tim, can you
Yeah.
formulate this?
I'm thinking right now.
I make a motion that Tim formulate this for the next
I second that.
I've written down.
discussion.
She might not second it. I can read off what we just said.
You can.
Tell you what, Jennifer has a record, what she's gonna do is document it for us, print it out, and that'll be part of the agenda for the next meeting. We all agree to the layout and the format.
Second,
That
Yeah,
was the motion.
there you go.
okay.
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 And all in favor?
Nice return, Tim.
I like, all in favor?
So you walked in, you walked right into it.
Sick at the next meeting again.
Jennifer, will you send that to me too
I
when you,
will.
oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, so why don't we start with the
26th.
26th, January 26th. Meeting minutes as amended.
Thank you for making.
This is an example.
Yeah, I know.
This is an example. You know, like,
I only look at what I say. No, but it's very hard to check what you all said.
No, that's,
Could I also recommend that when we print our minutes, we do it double-sided?
I hear.
Yep.
I do it at home.
I do it at home.
Okay, I'm looking at what we
Yeah, what
got in
I sent
our
you.
folder.
Okay.
Thank you.
Should we make a motion for that?
Being
a wise guy.
I think I missed a meeting right after this, but now that I'm looking in the minute, I'm seeing this thing about a list of future facility projects in rank order. Did we get that?
You did.
I must not get it.
Yeah.
So it must be like in the Dropbox or something. Okay.
I can pull
If
it
it's
up.
in the Dropbox, I'll find it.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know.
Or if it was sent to us in our emails.
It was sent in email.
Yeah, I've got it.
You mean Steve Foster's list?
Yes.
Yeah.
I could not, I didn't get it in my drop.
No, it didn't go on Dropbox, but we could put it there.
Okay, good, I'd like to have that.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion relative to the January 26th meeting minutes?
Motion to approve the
second.
minutes?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay, so we'll take a look at the meeting minutes
I
from
did second it.
February 11th, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I thought the whole community development thing was very good.
Yeah, it was excellent presentation, so that's
Excellent.
not,
I told Kathy Darby,
Yeah.
you know, because she left when you were talking all
Yeah.
about, she was very happy that, you know, everybody was pleased with it.
what a nice way to start the budget process.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it also highlights the value of having this level of transparency and accessibility to the department heads, because there's a color and a flavor and kind of a depth of discussion that you get when you have those people that are really managing that and have the vision for
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
I really,
They're the makers, they're the
yeah,
shakers.
and I think it gives the community a real understanding of what's happening. So kudos to encouraging that.
Mhm.
And she was on today with the news center as well. Good.
Do you have any motions relative to the meeting minutes from February 11th?
Make a motion to accept the meetings of February 11th as is.
Second.
All in favor?
I'm sorry, who seconded it? It's hard for me.
Susan.
Okay, thank you.
And how many meals a week do they serve? How many people a week? Remember the number?
Probably not mine.
956, remember? the-
Yeah.
Yeah, or 956.
956, right.
That was the number. Amazing.
19,000 Meals on Wheels.
That's right, yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so then, the last item on the agenda was the review of the Finance Committee report. I don't think we need to review it. I think what we should do is, we're gonna be off next week because of the Super Tuesday. But I think it's about time for us to start thinking about how we want to divide up the, you know, this is what we did last year and it worked pretty well. We gave, you know, each person kind of took one section. So I think what we should start doing is thinking about, you know, if you have an area of interest, you can shoot me an email and say, I'd be interested in doing a section on this or a section on that. I'll try to put together a list for next thing and say, like, these are the sections we're gonna talk about. So it's,
I'm happy with that.
you know, I think,
Do you think the same headings, Bill?
yeah, I think in general, the same headings, and then, you know, if we want to add any,
Anything special?
Aren't we on March 3rd?
and we are on, and that's right, we are on March 3rd
That's
instead
next
of
week.
1st.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's next week, we don't.
We're on Thursday next week.
Next week, Thursday.
Yeah.
We just don't know where at this point.
Yeah, did they decided?
Oh, yeah, do we know where?
Yes, that's, I believe at the, wait a second, hold on.
I should have been gone by now. I would have picked up the walking
March 3rd, I have the school.
School?
School, okay.
School admin, okay.
But I'll always let you know if a change happens.
Right.
You're good, very good at that.
Yeah. Okay, so we're meeting next week on Thursday because we do have an abbreviated, and we have we have the elections on the town elections on the 19th too. So
Okay.
busy. March is a busy month.
So who's coming then?
I'm just opening that up right now. Give me 1 second.
We have the town manager, the finance director, the superintendent, and any supporting staff. Come
Hold
on.
on a second. Let me see.
That's gonna be.
I don't know if that's. I don't know why this document just won't open for me. Hang on 1 second. I think the schools moved actually.
I do too. I got the school department all the way, oh,
Yeah, the school.
When did that
it's out
happen?
to March 22.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you know what, and I asked that question, why is it so late when it's such a big part of the budget? Why can't we have it earlier?
It was basically their schedule, so they weren't available. I mean, the schools have all sorts of evening events that, you know, Dr. Price and so forth would be. And then, like I said, this year is tough because of the, you know, they have meetings every Thursday, and then, you know, so obviously that's why the 3rd wouldn't work, because they have school committee meetings on the 3rd.
So what did the school committee bless the budget? Or supposed to bless the budget? I don't know the timeframe.
They voted on it already, I think.
Did they?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
yeah.
So, we haven't been getting our Mealy reports, have we?
No, I'll give him a call, and I was gonna have him double up and kind of give the year-to-date financial report along with their operating budget for the next year.
Yeah, because we're coming up on.
Yeah.
Probably.
So I think we last heard from them in December, so.
So next week is not all those people.
No.
So next week is support services, facilities, IT, and certain administrative functions. So, I guess I would ask, you know, we've had Chris McClure, we've had Steve Foster up. Do we need to have them back to talk about their operating budgets? Or do you want to take
They
a,
talked about their operating budget as part of their capital budgets.
okay. So we're all set with them,
Which made
so
more
if
logical
it's,
sense to me.
if it's Andrew, you know, if it's just Andrew to talk about his budgets, and then, you know, perhaps I'll just tack on that we'll ask more sort of general budget questions, because we're, you know, we usually, Jennifer wasn't here, but in prior years, we wouldn't dive right in with the departments like we did last week. We just did that because, like I said, it's such a compressed thing, compressed cycle this year with the elections and how early we need to get the letter out. So I think I'll just let Andrew know, and I'll modify the agenda and get it back to you, and just let Andrew know that, you know, we might have more sort of bigger picture questions for him than just sort of his departments.
I do encourage everyone to read the first few sections of this, because it does talk about certain things such as the dog poop kind of thing. But in addition, it does talk about the shared services, so in my mind already, I'm like, how do you measure shared service savings, and how are you doing that? I've realized that there's not necessarily a reduction in cost like you'd have in business, it just goes somewhere else.
Yes.
Seriously.
Tasted the two.
You know?
Yeah,
Because I did shared services, got a lot of money.
it's moving around.
Okay,
Yeah.
so is the 3rd a time to discuss possibly lacking up the report?
That's what I
Yeah,
was
all
gonna
right,
say.
so
I think
that's
this
what
is the time to
I'll
do
say.
it.
So why don't we just, I'll put together a list of the you know, if you have anything particular that you want to change from the year before, any category you want to add, I think collective bargaining agreements is one that we should add as a category, just to kind of have it be a standard standing category that we're going to talk about what.
Second paragraph or two, right?
Yeah.
And stabilization, we're not adding anything to any stabilization funds this year, are we?
Well, it would just be reserves. So I think,
Yeah.
you know, I think we should update that. I think we should update that chart, Liz, if you want to do that. I think that was a very useful chart to talk about.
Yeah,
Just the one.
yeah, I did that last
You
year.
know, where our reserves are, where they're going to be, because that's something we're going to see growth.
Well, would you happen to know in Dropbox what the name of just the letter is from 2016?
I don't know, you know what, we actually edited that on Google Docs. I'll just take that document and I'll put it in this year's folder and I'll title it.
You don't have to, I can go on paper because I'm gonna grab that back. But what do you want us to do before next week, is my question. Just look at last year's.
Just look at it and think about the categories. If there's a category, and next week we'll just say, here are the 9 things we're gonna cover in the letter. Everybody gets one area.
Okay.
And you're responsible for sort of writing that up.
Just take the paper.
Then we, you know, then we kind of stitch it together. It's like a jigsaw. So
Yeah.
then we stick it back together and then we edit it together.
Okay.
We'll have it up on the screen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know we're gonna talk about next.
Well, yeah, that which is
Maybe
great.
We should add a little section for
I'm bringing my laptop in.
understand how it is we can have an increase in the budget of 3.61%.
Yeah.
Our
Well, I'm so
property
glad
tax
you did that
levy
last
will
year.
increase by 2.5.
It's always asked.
Oh, right.
People walking by my house ask me all the time.
But that's why we should put it in here,
Decide that the new.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because.
Don't even
It's,
stop.
uh,
Don't even, this is not easy.
Growth
Let's just
and
be
all
clear.
that stuff.
Again, it's in the very first part of this thing, where you can actually
It's the-
explain it. You can actually cut and paste the words from
And who
Andrew.
knows which one will
You don't know.
get
I hire
added
those
this.
guys.
We should do
It's
it
not
twice.
Or neither.
Right.
They'll probably read the warrant quickly.
And it was.
Yeah.
It's not just
Um,
one.
But it's in the.
It actually is, he talks about it like $600,000. There's a number $600,000. It's in
Okay,
there.
good, so we can maybe just take right out.
Yeah.
Good.
Do you?
There's a lot of good stuff there.
The same people
Okay.
stop me every year too, and ask the same question. Well, I'm painting the fence, you know. How can you know, raise the budget by that? We only take in so much. How do you do that?
Oh, no.
That's
what you should say.
That's great. They have a question to ask.
Oops,
I
that's
have a
what you
Okay,
should say.
yes, Jennifer has a question and then okay.
Yeah, why is the capital improvements presented to us separately from the budget when we keep flip-flopping every time of what was on the SIP versus the?
Well, because the capital projects budget, easier to do, I think, you know, that's it, and there are 2 different funding sources.
Okay,
I mean, and so the capital projects budget all gets funded by debt service
so the numbers are ready sooner,
sooner.
so
And I
why
think
not
that-
present it?
Yeah, and they've been in a pro forma format for, you
Yeah,
know, yeah.
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 Because they're 2 entirely different budgeting processes.
I understand, but
yeah.
if, I'm new and I notice that we keep flipping, oh, that's on capital, oh, that's operating, and we keep, what's on capital? So we keep doing that, yet we don't have the paper in front of us.
Yeah, well, I think, you know,
There's
one
a
of the
bit
things
of
that
a gray
Andrew.
zone really, capital
there
and
is a
operating
sliver.
budget.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think
Great.
what Andrew has done too is probably more so than other town managers, and it's been a change, is that, you know, like you saw, there's a line item for $120,000 in capital outlays in Bruce's budget for vehicles
Yes.
that we're buying without going out and bonding the money, which is great, you know, it's like buying a new car in cash.
Expensive.
So there's
Yes.
probably, you know, there's a line that I think is crept upwards, so now it's, you know, we're only bonding the stuff that's really bigger, and I think that's positive. But I think, you know, it's I think the projects in those cases get budgeted based on need and the points year over year, so it's a completely different process.
Yes.
Whereas your operating budget is kind of how your delivery of service flows from year to year,
Yeah.
you know, and the other things that tend to be more project oriented.
That
So
must be
it's
why
just-
you're all sticking to paper and electronically, it's hard for me to flip between.
Yeah.
Yeah, operating budget, labor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. We have a motion?
You have a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's 8:33:59.
Sorry.